Hello, and welcome to the Tough Woman Podcast, the space for all women to drop everything at the door, take a seat at the table, and join in the conversation. This is a place free of judgments and expectations, a place to shed self-limiting beliefs, a place where you can be uplifted, enriched, and empowered to step into the badass, inspiring, unfuckwithable woman I know you all truly are. Yay. As always, I am Ashley Ingram, your hostess with the mostest. Today's podcast is about becoming a love warrior. Oh, that gave me chills saying that. The heart and soul of honor. I have the absolute privilege of bringing on a special guest, Betty Dang, who is a love coach and happiness expert. Hello, Betty.
Hello. Hi, I'm Betty Dang. I'm a love coach and happiness expert. Thanks for having me on the show, Ashley. You want to finish?
You're so welcome. I'm so excited for you to be here. So, everybody, you guys know me. I am a women's transformational life coach, the head of the Unfuckwithable Woman coaching program and business. And so, but today, again, like I said, I have Betty Dang. So, Betty, I'm going to let you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do as a love coach and happiness expert. And then we're going to go ahead and dive into this, what I know is going to be an amazing podcast episode of what a love warrior is and the heart and soul of honor and all that entails. So please, Betty, tell us about who you are, who you serve, what you do, and how you do it.
Thank you, Ashley, for having me on the show. It's really a big honor to be on your show and definitely to be one of the unfuckable women. We definitely need more badass women to step up our game and become leaders and help other women rise and shine just like we're meant to be. It's definitely a woman's world now coming about. As a love coach and happiness expert, I help my clients figure out what it is that their purpose is and their passion is, and we align it together so that they can reach their potential and their inner power. A lot of us carry traumatic wounds inside of us, and I use Kundalini energy healing and coaching, positive psychology, and a lot of love to help you move from your cocoon out into becoming that butterfly that just blooms and becomes its metamorphosis. Really change your perspective and your mindset, especially around love, money, sex. Those are the main issues that tends to be the problem that holds you back. We have a lot of those issues in our own society that we need to resolve so that we can treat each other on a equal basis. I believe in trusting your intuition, respecting your body and your worth, and being confident in your self-worth so that you can ask for the things that you deserve. Yeah.
I definitely understand that, having took so long to figure out what it was that I was worthy of, and even being able to ask for that. And I think that's something that all women struggle is, you hear them talk about, well, I want this, but I don't know how to ask for it. Or, I'm afraid to ask. Like, I feel like
Right.
That's such a stigma with women, is that
Yes.
of worth and going after what it is that we want. So I get it. So in talking in this episode, I really want you to tell my audience, what is a love warrior? Like, when we're talking about becoming a love warrior and the heart and soul of honor, because I know this is something that you love so much, and I want to know more about it, because I definitely feel like in my life I've worked so hard to get really healed and whole, but I find that like my love life and even sometimes my financial aspect of it, that's still an area where I'm lacking, and there's still somewhat of a disconnect at. So if you will, tell us, what is a love warrior and the heart and soul of honor? Break that down for us a little bit.
That's a really good question, right? Breaking it down. So I like to go backwards on that. Let's honor. The honor is being able to stand on your word. If we look at the 4 agreements in the book by Don McGill Jose or something, the 4 agreements. And one of if you follow the 4 agreements to live, it's like you do your best and you don't be impeccable with your word. So doing the best to keep your word and to be fair to others and treat other people exactly the way you want to be treated, and not scam each other, not tell lies, and not take advantage of each other, right? And when you can do that with honor, then you can connect on a deeper level and become friends with heart and soul. You become friends in a deeper level, or we call it almost like soulmates. When you become a love warrior, you are fighting for love in this world. You want to bring in more love. You are taking actions and doing acts of kindness simply because you want to pay it forward and bring about this idea of unconditional love in this world. It kind of radiates
Um,
from you. Does that
I love that.
answer your question?
I love that, and I love that you touch on unconditional love. That I feel like that's something that we're not talking about a whole lot. That's
Yeah,
something,
right.
and
Love
it's
comes in many forms.
and so when you're working with clients and they're in this space where they're like, I want to attract more love and I want to attract more money. What are normally the ways that you guide them? What are some ways that you help them create this attraction for love and abundance, and especially money? Because I like I said, I had the privilege of watching you on another person's interview the other night, and you talked about the way you treat your money is directly related to how you feel about love and sex and that correlation. So I guess what I'm really asking is, can you dive a little bit into all those correlations? Because I really think that that's a really important area that we're not talking about, which is why I love that I've met you, because you put such this deep spin on it that is still tangible. Like people can get it and then go, okay, this is how I can do this and bring more of this into my life.
Right. That's a really good question, Ashley. When we talk about money, we're talking about energy. Love is an energy, money is energy. So I'd like to say that love is money as well, because they're both energies. They're tools that we can use to create the things that we desire. But money should not be our main, desire to chase for. When you detach yourself from money and you allow it to become a tool for you to use in your daily operations, in your daily business, and for you to attract it, you become a magnet. So by working with your inner issues and going through those transforming those trauma wounds that we have, we're opening up our heart chakra, we're opening up our abundance chakra, like the solar plexus, the sacral chakra. Are you familiar with chakras? Can I talk about chakras in this?
Yeah, please, because I definitely, as we go along in this, really what I love to bring out, because you are an expert in this, and this is something I find intriguing, is Kundalini. And I think it's important actually to discuss the chakras, because not a lot of people are familiar with them. And I am, having dived into my own journey and healing my chakras and balancing them out and diving into Kundalini, it's amazing to me how incredibly imperative it is to balance those chakras out as women get in touch with that sacred energy, because it is so sacred and it's so long standing. Like
it is such a powerful current energy, like a currency of energy. Your sacral chakra sits right where your sexual energies, your genitals are. It's an energy center that is in charge of your abundance, and abundance is also your sexual energy. So that's why we say love is money is sex, and sex is money. And when you think of all those energies as tools, if you want to make more money, you need to expand your chakras. You need to expand all of your chakras to the same size. Let's say you want to attract $40,000 in, you need to make sure all your chakras are ready to receive that $40,000 so that you can receive $40,000. I teach money mindset to my clients as well, because in order to get there, you need to expand your heart. And expanding your heart means learning to trust your intuition and your worth. Like you are worth the $40,000, and believing that you are worth the $40,000, so that your mind and your thoughts create that reality, and it creates that space so that your money can be pulled in and your energy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. And that's funny that you talk about the sacral chakra, because I've actually been doing guided meditation lately. And what I find, because when I got in this, my whole goal was to open my third eye, right? Like I would
Yes.
nobody tells you, nobody told me, they're like, well, you have to ground first. You have to open your root chakras, because if you go in and throw that third eye open and you're not grounded and your root chakras aren't good, you're going to be like, whoop, there you go. And so I came back down. I did a Reiki healing, but then I came back down and I started working in my root chakras. And I'm very lucky that I got in with people who do guided meditations and we're working through those chakras. But we're spending an extended amount of time in the sacral chakra. And I've come to realize that there are so many blocks that I didn't even realize I had, and they were sitting right in that chakra. Like, and it ties back to the things that I had to deal with of my own worth and my worth being validated by would a guy sleep with me. If I remember coming up, and if a guy didn't want to sleep with me, I felt unworthy. I felt automatically rejected, and I was immediately shaming myself, like, well, what is it about me that's not worthy? And I did all that with love. And when I got into sacral chakra, I realized those were blocks, or like, I feel like we talked about, you've read The Untethered Soul, right?
I've heard of it, but yes.
He talks about samskaras. So those little energy pain points, I guess, is the best way I can put it, where they hold that energetic field in. And I am realizing coming into it, I have quite a bit of samskaras going on there.
Yes, it's like it creates a wall, a barrier, so that your light inside you can't shine. So I work with my clients to unravel those little kinks around your chakras so that you can start to be free falling again. Whether we do it through coaching or do it through Kundalini is a very strong energy that starts at the base of your root chakra and it rises all the way up to your crown chakra up here. But the journey to make that serpent rise is almost like turning darkness into light. So you're going to have to face a lot of your traumas that you haven't maybe have forgotten, or things that you had happened to you when you were a child. For example, I was bullied. My husband was murdered. I was in 9/11. There was just so many things that happened in my life that compounded into energies, because everything that happens to you that's traumatic gets imprinted into your energetic subconsciousness, and whether it's true or not, it becomes a belief that you need to reflect and let go of those beliefs that no longer serve you, so that you can be limitless. That's what I teach in my coaching programs, is how to be limitless and create the things you need. I am a refugee. I was born in America. My parents are refugees. They had $10 after they got married, and they have worked hard to create a life for themselves. I worked hard through school to graduate and get a really great job. I've ended up working for the 5th largest reinsurance company in the world. And it's all through money mindset and believing in yourself and empowering yourself to take those chances and make those choices, to take those risks to level up your game.
Yeah, I totally agree and understand, because I had, in my personal experience in diving into especially the sacral chakra and just my worth and all that, I ended up stumbling into inner child work, which that in and of itself, aside from Kundalini and everything, is like a whole different bag that you have to open and
yes, it is.
With. But I'm sitting there and realizing, I always remember coming up, and I always used to tell people I'm not a hugger. There's like this lovely picture, and it's like me comforting people, and it's like someone from a way back view, and someone's like over a toilet, I guess, getting sick, but they're comforting them with a broom, a long-handled broom. So they're like, oh, you're okay. Like, I always used to tell them, yeah, that's me. I'm not a hugger, yada, yada, yada. I don't hug. And I would always get upset. And the times when I was actually upset and expressed emotion, I would always feel this underlying need to have a hug. I'm like, I really wish someone would just come hug me. Like,
yes,
I want to hug.
It's a huge, hugging is exchange of energy, and hugging for more than 20 seconds is a bonding experience. And as humans, we all crave hugging. I never used to be a hugger either, and now you connect to, you just feel that hug to round out that energy and exchange, because when you talk to each other, you're exchanging energy, and hugging it kind of consecrates that energy of love between. We're animals, like, you know how like puppies love to cuddle in puppy piles?
Yeah, oh gosh. Yeah.
Right? So as humans, and we're mammals, we like to be in piles and groups together too. I mean, this is why there's been a rise of cuddle parties. People to come and learn to cuddle with each other and find connection and find likeness, like find their own puppy pile, you know? And it's not something that's rare, because when you share good conversation with someone, you just want to be close to them. And It's a feeling of, I guess that's why you see in vampire movies, they're all in piles together. I don't know I don't know how to share, but when you see the tribe, they're all together. Everyone's like a community,
Well,
and they party and.
you look outside of the US, you look in all these other cultures, and even in the cultures where it's not necessarily that they're third world, you see a lot of the families, they're in one room together and they're always like in a group together. And I've come
Yeah.
into, I've had friends who are of other cultures and I'm just amazed. And I guess it's because it wasn't a big thing in my family, but I'm just amazed how touching they are. They're always
Touchy
hugging
Feely.
each other
Yes,
and they're
yes.
constantly like that connection. I'm just like, you guys are like this all the time? They're like, yeah, all the time. Anytime we leave, kiss. And I'm like,
Yes, they are very touchy-feely. When I went to Greece, the guys would hang around and touch each other and just like play. And we told them that that type of behavior is considered gay, homosexual in our country, and they would laugh at us and like, no, we're not gay. No, 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 no. They would get upset. But that was friendliness, and that was part of the culture. And even in my culture, like it's normal for girlfriends to hold hands and just be at that, to hold hands when they walk and talk to each other, because it's like the energy connection of feeling and wanting to be close to each other. In America, we don't have that feeling of closeness. Everyone is so individualistic, and I will have to say we live in a very selfish world nowadays. That's why we are having a lot of the problems that we're having, because people are not taking the time to see other people's perspectives, thinking or putting themselves in another person's shoes. They weren't taught to think outside the box, to be honest.
well, and I like that you touched on like when you went there and you said, well, in America, this is considered, people view that as you being gay or homosexual. And I'm just like, I've realized that anytime that I talk about connecting with another woman, like, oh, we were sitting there, like you talk about other women just like being very close and hugging, because I see this a lot like in Australia. The women there are very like, if they're
Mm-hmm.
groups of friends, they're like loving on each other. And it's not that they're, not necessarily that they're homosexual or anything. It's just that's how they show love. And it's like,
That's how they show affection with friends.
here you talk about like hugging on a girl and automatically, like, especially I feel like if you're talking to a male, and I hate to put them out there like that, but like, oh, well, are you like of the other persuasion? Like, oh, do you like women like that? Like, no, dude, this is my friend and this is how I want to show her love. We want to show each other love, and it's and nothing on how everybody else shows love. I love everybody. I think whatever makes you happy, but it's like I like men, but you know what? If I want to hug my girlfriend, or even if I want to give her a kiss on the cheek, it's nothing more than I'm just showing you love. I'm just reciprocating the love you got. Because my one friend's like, hey, my roommate, she's like, if you ever just want to come sleep in the bed, if you don't want to sleep there, you don't want to, because sometimes she wants someone to just be that she wants that presence in her life. And
Right.
I talk to the guys at work sometimes, like, oh, you guys gonna have like a little, love party. I'm like, guys, like,
Yeah,
when
that's
did
not
it become
true.
a thing like that? Just showing someone love and attention, it automatically it's got this negative connotation to it. Like the way that it's made it so not negative but perverse. Like what?
Because that's the way they think. I had that same issue with one of my clients and I. We shared a hotel room because we were like she had a space and I was staying there. People thought that we were sleeping together when we were not sleeping together. People's People don't think. Their thinking skills automatically goes to the gutter. I hate to say it. They don't think intellectually.
Well, and I want to bring this up because you talked about, and going back to this interview that you did, and I love it so much, and I pulled so much out of it. You talk about we're in such, I guess I would put it a porn rampant age now, where our automatic we correlate what happens in porn that's what's happening in real life. So anytime you talk about two women having like a sleepover or whatever, automatically, especially I feel like it's a man thing. I swear to you.
It is a man thing, and
But
if
I
they
feel like you
definitely.
say that, and they're like, "Oh, you're having a sleepover, huh?" It's like, dude.
But that's how American men react. That's how it's their culture and their personality. I don't know how to say it. They don't have they don't think of something more intellectual to say. Does that make sense? what they're saying is something that is what's the first thought that popped into their head, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what they're really justifying is that the first thought that popped into their head isn't very intellectual to start with.
I like that you said that because I'm going to use gentlemen as an example. So the guys that I work with give me a lot of insight into how men think.
Mm-hmm.
And so there is this guy at work. He brings me cookies. Like it's a weird system, but
I can already see this. He brings you.
because I made a joke with him one time. I said, because he's like, I said, if you ever find some cookies that, you can't sell or whatever, it was a joke. And they're like, oh, because you said hi to him now, he thinks you're his girlfriend. I'm like, is that really how that works? They're like, yeah, there's a certain period of time in a man's life, certain age group, that if a woman says hi to us, our automatic thought is, oh, she wants to bang. I'm like, what? They're like, yeah. I'm like,
actually very true, and unfortunately very true, that we now mistaken friendliness as flirtation. Like men have mistaken, and women too. Let's not try to say just one, but more men. They mistaken that friendliness as a flirtation. Like I'm a coach, and I help people with their health issues and finding natural solutions for their medical conditions as well. I'm basically an alternative doctor. You don't hit on your doctor and you don't date your doctor. And that's what I tell male clients to hit on me, because I have to draw the line somewhere. You can't ask me out on a date. I'm approaching you as a client or a friend. Especially you've got all these problems that you need to work on before you even date anyone.
well, and I feel like in talking about the female aspect of that, I feel like when we're talking about men who are friendly, I've heard this come out of a lot of women that I know. The automatic assumption is, oh, well, what does he want? What does he want? Like, he's not just being friendly for no reason. Like, why do we automatically assume that he wants something now? Like, why is this such a rampant? Like, I feel like this is where we are in the state of love, and we have so much backwards as, compared to what
It's
it
just
should
that I could tell you this right now, that the few men that have been able to become my friends and become like my boyfriend the same way, how they reach out to me was that they had a very intellectual conversation and asked questions about me, and we started a conversation, just like you and I have started a conversation here. And we started to talk about things that were like, oh, things that we liked, our hobbies, our interests. And they were very straightforward, like, I like you, I want to be more than friends. Do you want more? Like, it wasn't just a hi, hello. It was more of a development conversation. How many men do that? Few that I have found out of men or 100 men that try to connect with me. In my whole 10 years of like living on the internet, there's been very few men that have connected with me that way. More intellect and to really start a conversation and build a relationship over the fact that we're going to be text messaging each other.
I agree.
Anyone else, I'll tell you, it's just shady. Because with the internet, 95%, you can start to see who really cares to connect with good people and who is just out there to be part of a social media. Some people are out there just to collect likes.
Yeah, I've definitely had that. Unfortunately, my experience has been one that's also very rampant, and the age of the anatomy pick, like the age of the anatomy pick in your DMs, and I just don't understand. Or like, if I'm having an actual intellectual conversation online, like if I'm holding a live, you've got these people coming on there, you're so hot. What does it have to do with anything? Oh, you're so hot. Like, what does that have to do with anything? But yes, so, because I feel like, but yeah, so I feel like we've really gone so far away from what it is that we actually want. I feel like we're saying, well, we want these vulnerable, loving relationships, but we don't have this ability to be vulnerable ourselves. And talking about the chakras and coming back to that, because I really do want to really put some light on that. I feel like the biggest thing that I've learned in diving into my sacral chakra and even diving into Kundalini myself and having experience, you have to be vulnerable. Real change, real transformation comes in being able to be vulnerable, whether that's with myself, with any partners or people I bring around. It's just being able to be vulnerable. So what are your thoughts on that? And like, what are the things you encounter with people in vulnerability when you're coaching them? Because I feel like that's such a big thing, especially in chakra work and everything else. So yes.
Vulnerability is a very tough subject for a lot of people, and becoming like I work with a lot of independent women who have done things for themselves all their lives. So opening themselves up to another person, to their partner, is very vulnerable for them. So we deal with their inner insecurities first, and we learn to trust our intuition. Because when we can trust our intuition, we can trust our feelings, and you can feel, okay, if someone feels good, it has that warm feeling in your heart. If someone is lying to you, you can start to feel that coughing on your throat. You can start to feel that not so nice feeling in your heart. So you can start to distinguish.
But okay, so just because I clicked out a little bit there, you guys, welcome to it. Just reframe a little bit what you said before, and then I'll go from there. Welcome.
I said that before with my clients, I ask them to open up to be vulnerable. We work in their inner issues, and we work on how to trust your intuition first. Because when you learn to trust your intuition, then you can identify who you want to be vulnerable with and who you don't want to be vulnerable with. And that's where you start to learn to draw your boundaries and protect yourself from unwanted.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense because I feel like when I really started tapping into my own healing journey, the thing that I came across that I struggle with was setting healthy boundaries and holding true to those healthy boundaries. So I always felt like it was wrong of me to tell people no, or when I was in a relationship with someone, if I didn't want to do it, but I felt like it was going to make them upset, I would still do it. Even if it wasn't something that I felt like I was wanting to do, I would still do it. And then I would feel this overwhelming wave of shame that came with it. Like shame, like how could you do this? And then it would be this onslaught of just crap in my head and negative self-talk. When I started assessing those boundaries, I was able to really be like, you know what, this doesn't serve me. What I found that assessing boundaries did, though, is it put me in this whole different realm of vulnerability, completely different realm of vulnerability, because it forced me to come up and say, listen, this is what I'm about. But I couldn't know what I was about, my boundaries were about, until I got in touch with who I was as a person. So in talking about those boundaries, I feel like that's one of the biggest, most important things that I did on my own journey. And I think I tell that to people that I work with and even interact with, like, you need to have boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
You'd be amazed what'll happen when you bring those boundaries about. Even like, not even just that, but the boundaries align me to people that I actually want in my life, because the people who aren't going to respect my boundaries, when I stand in those boundaries, they kind of just fall off. They're not there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And it's pretty. And I would like to ask you, because this was one of the things. So we talk about setting boundaries, and when we don't have boundaries, we have that shame and that lack of worth. So do you find that women, is that more like a female thing? Do you find that you deal with a lot of women as far as like having that shame and not feeling worthy of having the love and the money that they want? Like, why that's such a rampant thing, especially with us?
So that's a really good question. It doesn't only happen to women, it also happens to men. But for women, it happens a lot because of our culture. We live in America, and I'm just going to be straightforward. We live in a rape culture. The highest amount of rape happens between the ages of 9 and 12, actually 9 and 15 years old. And a lot of these women who grow up with these rape issues never really get to resolve those issues that are inside them. And as we had mentioned before, love and sex and money are all correlated together. If they have these sexual wounds and there's these traumatic side them, it will affect how they feel about their worth and if they're able to ask for money. And that's sometimes the case, is that they're not feeling their full worth. And let's say their full worth is they should have been able to graduate in a nice career and be able to make $75,000 a year. But because they had been molested as a child and no one ever helped them with the psychology and to unravel those money stories and the feeling of shame from those incidents, they are not able to reach that potential, and they're making maybe $30,000, and they're having so many problems with their relationships, and they're having problems with sex life and their love life, and it just radiates out. That's what I find, is that a lot of my clients, what their main problem is that in their teens or in their younger years, they were molested or had sexual rape. I know so many women who have gone through that incident and had to be silent about it because there was no real way to get justice, especially with date rape. Date rape was so hard to be put into court that it creates a lot of barriers in their heart, they don't trust men, they don't trust around them. It carries on with these patterns for years, for 7 years, for 10 years. Some people carry these patterns all the way up until their 50s before they see someone like me, a coach to help them unravel that, and all of a sudden they become a new person because now they're not carrying all that baggage with them anymore. It's a really long answer, but I hope I didn't lose you through all that.
No, you are, because I don't want to go too deep because I've worked through this, but a rape situation in high school where I was unfortunately inebriated and taken advantage of during that period. And rape is rape regardless of how it's stressed. And what blew my mind is when I tried to talk about it, I got told, well, you put yourself in that situation.
Right.
You were drinking. And then I got called a whore. Like, I got made to feel like I was the one that was wrong. Like, and I remember going, well, I remember feeling so much shame after that and coming up, and I'm like, and then I remember someone going, you shouldn't feel any shame. Like, you were the victim in this.
Right.
And
you were the victim. No one should ever do something to you the way they did it to you that way. And I'm sorry that happened to you. And that and how people treated you afterwards, that becomes part of your limiting beliefs in your subconscious. And that's when those are the type of subconscious beliefs that we clear in our coaching sessions, so that we can move forward and bring in more abundance. Just like your sacral, those memories and those wounds are in your sacral chakra, where your money stories are also held. So if you can clear those out, you can put in new money stories to bring in more positive wealth. That's where you're creating wealth from within. You have to clear. It's not an easy journey. I'm sure it wasn't easy for you to face some of the traumatic experiences and then to really accept that it happened. Accepting that it happened is the hardest part, because then your perception must change. And as humans, we have a hard time changing our perception. We don't want to change as easily.
Well,
right?
It's like, no, it is, because for the longest time, like, I'll use my divorce. For the longest time, I was married to my ex-husband, and he had addiction issues when we were married. And for a very long time after him, because this is when I really started learning to really confront my issues, was what is wrong with me? Why would he do this to me? And it was like I tied so much worth into it, not realizing that, well, he's the one with the issues. It's got nothing to do with me. It's got everything to do with the fact that he had those issues. So it's, for so long, it was like, well, why is he doing this to me? Why was I not worthy of his love? And that also came back to, I didn't set boundaries in our relationship. I met him and gave him everything he wanted and completely neglected anything I wanted. But it's also because I didn't know what I wanted when we were married. I thought I knew. I thought, well, I just want to be married. My whole thing was, I want to be married and I want to share the last name of one of my kids. So it's kind of like a means to an end with our marriage. I know that sounds so like cut and dry. Not that I didn't love my ex-husband. I loved him when we married, but I was like, well, I just want to be married. I want to do the right thing. Oh, I hate that. I feel like I meet so many more like, I'm going to do the right thing. Like, we're at this point in juncture in our relationship, so obviously the next logical step is to get married. Like, oh, stop. No, don't do that. Don't do that. So, yeah, no, I felt like a lot of my worth got tied into doing the right thing and facing all that. And when it's still, I found that was the pattern through my relationship with him too. Is like, when he didn't want to have sex, I felt rejected on a really internal level.
Right.
And that was a big pill to look at and swallow, like just having to digest that and really take a look at myself. I was like, oh gosh, Oh,
Yeah. No, I understand. It's a tough. It's over now, right? New
yeah,
beginning.
no, yeah. It's over, but it was amazing because there comes this moment in this clarity when you're like, okay, that's not me. Like I'm not, what happened there has nothing to do with me. But I had to really take a moment and step away from tying my worth and because I had a lot of shame around that. I had a lot of guilt. It took me so much longer to leave him. The red flags were there, even though it was like, well, you need to go. It took me so much longer to leave him because I had so much shame around leaving him. Like everybody was like, well, you should just make it work and you need to be the good, dutiful wife and everything else. And I'm just like, why am I doing this to myself? But it came in not having the boundaries to say, hey, this isn't serving me anymore. This isn't working. I'm literally on the point of not being able to move forward in life. So I feel like, is that something you come across a lot? Again, tying back into the shame and the worthiness thing, like women being in situations that they don't need to be in because there's not those boundaries and they don't know how to speak up for themselves and they have so much shame tied into it.
Yeah, there is. We don't live in a world where we have equality, right? We have the idea of equality, but we don't have equality. Women and men are not treated the same, and so for that reason, women need to strive a little bit harder to prove themselves that they can be just as good as men for a job, for almost every aspect of their lives. But in general, let's say money making. Women don't make as much money as men. Women do not get the same resources as men. Women have a harder time being an entrepreneur than men, right? A man who's an entrepreneur can get so many friends and so many resources and funds and investors. Women are not getting the same fundraising unless they spread their legs. I'm sorry. That's that's what the struggle is in some of the major cities, and that's why we don't have equality. What I'm teaching women to be is to be more empowered so that they can start to change their thoughts and change the trauma stories that they've experienced in their lives so that they can say, okay, I am just as equal to a man. I can do anything a man does. If he can get $100,000 grant, I can get a $500,000 grant, right? We're going to up level our game so that we can be just as equal as the men. We have a right to vote. We have a voice, and empowering women to open that voice, because before this.
I like that you say that because actually I was on LinkedIn the other day and I came across this post that a female had wrote about assessing your worth in a job interview. And she said, I think I'm worth this. And this is what I told them. And I was blown away at how many people like, how can you be like that? Yada, yada, yada. Like literally just an onslaught of like, how dare you assess your worth? And my thing is like, I feel like we as women are, like you said, we're not taught to stick up for our worth. We're not taught to go out there and be like, oh yeah, you know what, I'm worth this. Because then what are we told? Well, you're too aggressive. You're too much of a bitch. You're
exactly
too much of this. It's like, but if a man goes out and goes, I'm worth this and I want this. Oh, well, he's a forward thinker and he's a leader and he's a revolutionary.
Right. And that is the biggest reason why I have developed my own practice, because going out into the world, I worked in a place where I had women leaders. So I got to get a jump in my career as a woman that most women would never have. I worked in the fifth largest reinsurance firm in the world. I've done more things than most women my age have. And I'm not sure if I would be able to get the same pay that they gave me in the real world. Because when I went to Colorado, they only wanted to give me a third of what I was being paid. You know, after being paid 150 grand a year and now being offered 45 grand or 55 grand a year, that's not very That's not very appealing to me.
Yeah.
But it comes with like different territories that
Well, it's like I want to compete on a global stage. And the thing that I keep getting told is you're going to struggle more because you're a woman. You're going to come up against cultures that don't want to interact with a female leader. They just don't see women on the same hierarchy. So now, instead of being like, oh, I'm this startup woman, like, whereas if I was a man, I'd be like, I'm a startup. my ability to rise and not have to need extra education would probably be easier. But now I'm seeking extra degrees and stuff so that I can have that backing, because in reality, if you come up as a woman and say, hey, I'm this entrepreneur, even if you've built this massive business, there are some people who be like, well, you don't have the education or you don't have this.
Those
it's
people
like,
are not your clients. That's it. You can grow globally because you have clients that adore you. And that's really what matters, right? It's what you can give your clients and the results that you give your clients that builds. It doesn't matter whether you're a man or a woman, and that's why we have much more freedom to build our own practices and become our own businesses, because we have control over who we go. There are 30 countries out there, and they respect women and women in business much more. Asian countries respect women in business. There's definitely a lot of support for women in business in Asian countries. And in European countries, I'm sure in Germany and in some of the countries, women are very much well appreciated for their efforts in entrepreneurship and their work. America is a definitely different ballgame because they have never been as supportive for women. As it's growing, it's changing, but it's not the same type of support. You're going to see that the respect that you get outside of this country is a little different than you get inside this country.
Oh, that makes me feel fantastic.
Actually, at the end of the day, the person that you're not coaching the whole world. You're coaching the people who are your clients, who the ones that are your soul clients, the one that find you and your personality attractive to them, and they can resonate, and you can give them the results that they need. Right? This is what I work on with my clients, because we all have that fear that we can't attract clients. But we are able to, as long as we do our inner work, because it's whether we make the effort to open up opportunities and make more offers for our clients to be able to take advantage of that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, you make me feel a little bit better, because it's like when I would tell people about what I want to do, and they're like, oh, well, you're going to struggle so much because you're a woman. And I'm like, what? Like that's
it's very hard for a woman entrepreneur to grow and share your ideas with other women and other people who support you already. Don't share it with someone who's not an entrepreneur, because they're not going to understand. And the advice that they give you is based on their perception, which is their own limited money beliefs, right? They haven't taken the opportunity to go through any type of training or class to get rid of those money stories that they have. You struggling? Yes. Are you going to struggle? Yes. But how much are you going to struggle, really? Like, I'll give you an example. I'm doing a money masterclass, and I had a little anxiety of inviting people on Facebook. I sent out 15 invites to invite them, and if they were interested, I'd share a link to them. And I think 10 of them said yes, and only 2 people said no. And they said it nicely too, right? And there's one person that said no, and then they said yes. So I'm going to send them the link anyway. I'm following up today, and it's about I am owning up to my efforts. I haven't made as much effort to go live on videos, so this week I'm going to go on more lives. The masterclass is it's up to me to make my business and my services work for me. It's up to me to make the offers, because we live in such a busy world. So being an entrepreneur means you have to have the courage to be able to ask people, do you want this? Or do you like this? Or would you like to come to this class? Or would you like to come to this program? Or I'm holding a retreat. Over the years, when I used to have my snowboarding group, that's how I had to start in the first place. I just posted up my stuff, and it people ask and answer questions. And as much as we would love to be a money magnet and track everything in fast, sometimes we need to do some of our inner work first, so that we can actually start to make that flow come in faster.
Yeah, that
makes
sense.
100% possible.
Well, and I like that you talk about doing the inner work, because what I found when I was doing my inner work was that I had a problem asking people. Like, I'm going, well, why is this not working? I used to do sales. Why is this not working? Why am I not making any sales? And what I found out was that I had this correlating inner belief of having this rejection. I guess it tied back again into my rejection, but not asking people. not even necessarily asking for the sales, not asking them for anything in general, wondering why there was no growth going on. It's like, well, because you're afraid to ask. Like, you're
Right.
not asking.
Right.
And that was huge to me, because
I totally
once I started reaching out, people are like, oh yeah, here you go, let me help you, or whatever. And it's like, oh, this isn't as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Yes. So it's one of those things that what I observed in this country is that as women, as when we were girls and we were little boys in childhood, in schools, we're not taught about money and entrepreneurship. And we're girls, we're not encouraged to answer questions and be innovative the way boys are. And we have this phrase that I hate, not hate, but that I want to disappear. Boys will be boys. There should not be a phrase, boys will be boys, right? We should have equal opportunities for both boys and girls. The phrase that we should be saying is boys and girls matter.
Yeah,
But because we had that type of culture in the 80s and the 90s, those little kids are now our age. And they're acting based on those behaviors that they learned when they were kids.
Well, and I feel like, and going back into the culture, you're talking about the rape culture, I feel like when we talk about those issues with that correlate, with women and rape and all that, the underlying current is, oh, well, he's just a man. Oh, boys will be boys. It's like,
we have such a huge cover up for the men and excuses for the men. And it should not be an excuse. We need to take action, and we need them to own up to their actions and to stop it. They can stop it, right? They can stop harassing women.
And so
Go ahead.
I feel like we're gonna dive off but into that, and then we're gonna go for a whole nother hour, because I would love to. But no, yeah, I agree, because I feel like what happens is we're told, well, boys will be boys, but girls should make sure that they're covered up because they're too distracting. Like,
right.
The teacher would tell my daughter,
our fault that we're beautiful.
Yeah, like it's
not our fault that we're beautiful.
Like, if she hadn't dressed like that, she wouldn't have been asking for it. Like, what?
And that's not fair to say at all to any woman, because rape should not happen at all. Unfortunately, it happens on such a large scale that we need to do something about it.
Yeah. It's mind-blowing, especially having a daughter and seeing what she's coming up against. And
yes, your daughter's in her teens, right?
Yeah, and seeing what she has to deal with. And she comes home and she talks to me about her friends, like how the girls, what I find is that the girls are taking it on, and now they're trashing other girls. And she's like, I have so many friends that are cutting, so many friends that are suicidal over this, and they're made to feel like crap, mom, and yada, yada, yada. And it blows my mind. So, in tying all this together, because we talk about the heart and soul of honor, when we're looking at this culture, how is it possible to bring ourselves back into this space where we can meet a space of unconditional love, regardless of the culture that we're sitting in? How can we take being a love warrior in the heart and soul of honor and help to change this culture and be more in that status of unconditional love? Because one of my top value in my life and my business is unconditional love, and meeting people with that. And when I tell people that, they get, I wouldn't say they get defensive, but they're so confused. They're like, how do you unconditionally love everybody? And I'm like,
how do you, I know, it's a very hard question and to grasp, but unconditional love starts with yourself, giving yourself and being kind to yourself first, and loving yourself first. When you can love yourself first, and then that energy will radiate out to other people. Being able to forgive people for their mistakes is helping yourself to love unconditionally. Giving away, tips and helping other people and taking action to help the people. Being a love warrior means that if you see someone that's in depression, stop and talk to them for 5 minutes, 20 minutes, regardless of your time. Like taking the time, regardless of the fact that you're not on some high horse that you don't have time for a homeless person or for someone who is having a bad day and you notice that they're in a bad day, right? Like, I'm a coach, I have a high price, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to stop and talk to you because you're having a bad day. Being kind to each other and just start treating each other like human beings with more compassion, Compassion, I think, is the thing that is going to help our society. We need to bring back more compassion into our lives and being compassionate towards others and understanding that everyone can have a bad day and not yelling at each other as the first form of communication.
Yeah.
Those are tips that we can do, everyone can imply, right?
Yeah, because I feel like, I know growing up, my natural thing when I would try to talk and voice an opinion was to get yelled at. Don't talk back. Children should be seen and not heard. Be quiet. Like, so it's like you grow up and we're this quiet society. You know, you hear about these people seeing these things happening, like bad things happening to other people, and nobody speaks up.
No one speaks up. I can tell you that when my husband was murdered, no one in our society, in our community, wanted to be related to him at all. No one wanted to know what happened. Everyone said he deserved it, and I just stopped connecting with a lot of people in our community for that reason. They just don't want to accept that type of disaster has happened.
Yeah, it's mind-blowing.
But I've also seen the community. I was there in New York City in 9/11, and I've seen the community come together to take care of each other when there was a crisis. So it's not. Go ahead.
I think that ties back to the compassion thing, because I feel like you said, when we got into 9/11 and all this, there was so much compassion. When you see someone who's like lost their home, the community rally together because there's compassion for it. So I guess my question here is, what are your beliefs in how we get back to this state of compassion and this state of unconditional love? Because the whole thing with what I do here, podcast, especially bringing wonderful people like yourself on, is finding ways and putting out dialogue to start moving us back into these directions where we're aware and we're compassionate and we're operating out of we're not operating from self, essentially. We're operating outside of self.
I believe that unconditional love comes from the family. And if we can start to rebuild our family ties and our family relationships, that's going to radiate out to a bigger impact in our culture. And family can be the people that we are intimate family with, our parents or our siblings, or it can be the family that we've grown with, the people who are the ones that help us when we are in need, the people who are helping hands, like, your outer family, your second family, in your workplace, in companies that are family businesses, starting to treat each other nicer and starting to really create and treating each other with fairness and equality. I believe that's going to be the biggest thing that's going to help our culture turn around, because that's really where we're having a problem in our culture, is that people are not treating each other with the same respect and kindness that was probably prevalent, that was probably more visible in the 80s than it is now. I think times have gotten so hard that people are just very selfish with each other nowadays.
Well, and I remember you touching a little bit, I remember listening you touch a little bit about the divorce rate, and we're going to, I guess, the divorce rate is so high, but you talked also about how we don't see that example of good relationships anymore. Everybody talks about, well, I want the relationship like my grandparents had, that 60-plus year relationship, but you see people jumping around so much. So, like, once someone brings up something that makes them uncomfortable, well, I don't want to do this anymore. It doesn't work for me. Like, I don't want to deal with this uncomfort anymore.
The people get uncomfortable. Being in a relationship, you're going to have ups and downs. You're going to go through a lot of crises together. Life is not perfect. It's not like, oh, you meet this person and now you're together and this is going to be a smooth sailing out there. 5 years down the road, one of you is going to lose their jobs. Most likely, in the lifetime of a marriage, each of you are going to lose your jobs at least 2 times. Who is going to help each other? Like, are you going to help each other during that time? Or are you going to start to bicker at each other and say, because sometimes it's very hard to find a new job. You need to make sure that your spouse is going to support you and encourage you during that time. This is where a lot of divorce happens, is because they don't have the skills to manage the stress that comes with living together. I don't know if that makes sense to you.
Yeah, it's like I've talked to a couple of my friends who are in relationships, and they love the people that they're with, but they're very unsatisfied. They're like, and what is happening is they're giving and giving and giving, and the other partner is taking and taking and taking. And I'm like, this is not where you need to necessarily leave, but this is where you need to start assessing boundaries, and you guys need to be
right
together. Like, it doesn't need to be give, and getting nothing back. And I'm not talking about being selfish, but like one of my friends she gives a lot to her relationship, and she always feels like she's getting there. It's always about the guy. She said, and I'm not. And I said, well, this is where you come back and go, hey, I need this from you for us to be able to really move forward as a couple. And it's not that I'm telling her you need to get the world, but you need to be happy. It needs to be a mutual happiness, but there needs to be that mutual support too. Support that she gives him. I said, you're just as worthy of having that support back. And I think that that's such a thing that I feel like is missing. I feel like there's always a lot of give on one side, and we don't know how to mutually give together, if that makes sense.
Yes. No, we weren't taught give together in everything. You know, the reason why my parents work is because they don't fight about that anymore.
Yeah.
They share things, and they share their love, and they share their money, and they share everything together. You have to learn how to deal with those problems and not be defensive about each other's beliefs. And a lot of that comes from couples work. You need couple therapy. A lot of people get married without unraveling all that emotional baggage before they move in together.
I feel like the thing that I see a lot of, and it's not always the case, but I come across it a lot, is people going, well, this is my money and this is his money.
Yeah.
This is what bonkers drives me up. They're anticipating what will happen if they get divorced. So like, well, if we get divorced, I'm taking this and this. I'm like, why?
Yes, and your thoughts create your reality, because you're spending so much of your energy in thinking of if we get divorced, instead of saying this is our money together. We would like to share the same spending habits so that we have the same savings in the same case, making a real big plan. And what it is that I'll tell you that so many adults are uncomfortable about talking about money, uncomfortable about talking about sex. So how can they have real love in their relationship? Because those are the two most important things that you need to be able to comfortably talk about in order to have a successful marriage. Because those are energies of love.
Oh my gosh. I feel like I unfortunately have to start bringing it in because we're getting on that hour time.
I know.
But I feel like if we kept going, we'd probably be on this podcast for another 3 hours, because there's so much. There's so much to dive into, and I'm still looking at my list of stuff that I'm like, I didn't even get to talk about this. So I think there's definitely a lovely leave off here to come back and discuss this more, because this is a thing that absolutely fascinates me, and I really think that I would love to definitely interact with you on some other ones. I'd love to do podcasts on like Kundalini and just the chakras and all that, because stuff fascinates me. Say what you're going to say, please.
I met another person last night, and we were talking about Kundalini, and we're much more experienced in Kundalini. And when we both say when people want to delve into Kundalini, we're wondering if we should give them a warning or just let them find out on their own.
I'll say a side note. When I went to a metaphysical shop, and I met with this woman, and I told her that I was interested in Kundalini, and she looks at me, she's like, "Are you sure?" And I was like, what do you mean, am I sure? She's like, do you understand what you're asking for? And I said, well, yeah, I have a really good base knowledge. And I said, I'm pretty grounded in my sacral chakra. She's like, well, have you even had an experience? And I've had a couple Kundalini awakenings. She's like, how did you feel? Like, she really was gauging my. And I said, I felt intrigued. She's like, so you didn't feel scared, overwhelmed? I said, no. She's like, okay. She said, listen, Kundalini is a very deep pool, and it can be like a quicksand pool. If it really, she's like, she said, I said, so no diving in? She said, dear God, don't dive in. She said, no. She said, tiptoe in. She said, dip your toe in.
That's exactly the conversation we had yesterday. Every time someone says they want to get into Kundalini, first thing we want to ask you is, are you sure? Because have you done enough research? Because Kundalini rising is like the phoenix rising. You burn everything that is in your soul into ashes so that you can transform into a different person. And once you once the kundalini starts to rise, there's no stuffing it back down. It rises and it rises.
And what I found with it, and this is why I found that meditation, once I started really working with it, meditation is so imperative, because literally one night after I really started tapping into it, I was at work. I could not concentrate on nothing. Like, I felt it pushing at my crown chakra. I was like, I have to go meditate right now. Like, I'm sitting there, I'm like gripping the table. I'm like, I have to go right now. I have to go on break right now, because I couldn't, for the life of me, get my energy to calm down and focus. I ended up having to go meditate because I'm just like, yep, I can't. But, and it's like, when I tell people, I say, once you open that door, that's it. You've opened that door. There's no putting that back. You're not like, it's not like, you get on the roller coaster, you're like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. And you're at the top of the hill. Well, nope, you're going.
You're gone. And you have to stay on your path. And when you have that kundalini rising, it's rising you to become a leader. That's who I serve. I serve people who are visionary leaders who want to bring good into this world and bring the love and more happiness. You have to understand that the more you resist, the harder it will burn. I got into a car crash. I was hit by a drunk driver. And I said, no more. I can't resist. I can't play small anymore. I need to show up and shine and be the person that I'm supposed to be. Otherwise, the universe is going to keep pushing at you until you get it. And when you're a big person, Kundalini is a transformation process. Get out of your cocoon. And getting out of your cocoon is like a lot of trauma and a lot of tears, a lot of crying, a lot of emotional releases. I went through it, a big part of it, by myself. So I know that's why I became a love coach, because I want to be there to help people through it, and because it's a lot for them to understand.
Yeah, the same woman who asked me, are you sure? She's like, just know this biggest piece of advice I can give you on going through the journey. She said, other than don't dive into it, take it little by little and make sure you're grounded in your root chakras with it. She said, is make sure that you don't ask for too much at one time, because my whole thing now where I'm at is anything that's blocking me from moving forward, let's handle it and get rid of it. And as soon as I say that, everything comes at me, and it's like, you're going to deal with this. She's like, just remember, you have the ability to say, this is the rate at which I want to deal with things. Not that you don't want to deal with things. I want to deal with things, but I want it at this pace, because she's like, if you say, hit me with it all right now, let's get it all out of the way, because you've tapped into that, she's like, you're going to get what you asked for. And she said, and it can be incredibly overwhelming. She said, have you ever heard of people having mental breaks, like women having those serious breakdowns, like where they talk about their psyches being broke? They're like, it's something like that. I'm like, oh, I don't want that.
No, you don't. You want to, like she said, tread slowly, tiptoe slowly, because it changes the way you see things in the world. It changes everything, and it also changes the way it changes your friends, the circle of friends that you have.
Well, and I think the thing that changed for me the most with it is I began to see how everything was working for me. Like, I actually started seeing how that flow worked. Like, I'm able to manipulate the way things work in my life and being able to acknowledge the symbolism of everything. So, all right, because, now.
I know you need to tap out, right?
No, there's no cap, but just though I don't, I feel like I really want to make that one into another podcast. So ladies out there, just understand, we're going to dive into that soon. But so what I want to do, bringing it back and becoming a love warrior in the soul of honor, what I always ask, what are 3 general takeaways you can give to my audience right now, how they can work on becoming a love warrior, how they can be more authentic in unconditional love, compassion, and their boundaries, and how they can honor their heart and their soul.
Yes. So in order to become a love warrior, you need to trust yourself and trust your intuition. And that's the most important skill that you can work on for yourself, is to trust your intuition, your heart, right? And your mind is to respect yourself, respect your worth, and that respect the things that you're an intelligent person, and your mind is just as important as anyone else. And by working on those 2 things, you're going to build confidence to ask for your worth. And when you're able to ask for your worth, that's when you're able to draw your boundaries and keep at bay those things that don't serve you anymore. And that's how you grow. You have to be clear on what you want in your life. Is that good? Three takeaways?
Yeah, I love it. I love it so much. And just, speaking from my own, the biggest thing that I found from my takeaway to add on to that is just really, in doing that inner work, figuring out your boundaries. Like I tell my friends this all the time. It is not unhealthy to have and set boundaries. There's nothing that's unhealthy about it. It's not selfish. It's necessary for self-care. So for me, the biggest thing that I found was a game changer is setting those boundaries and establishing them, because if you're telling everybody yes, you're not telling yourself yes. If you're saying yes,
you need to say yes to yourself first before you say yes to anyone else. It's so important.
If you want to grow in life, but you're too busy taking care of everybody else, where's the room for the growth? I mean, like, you have to take a step back and focus on your growth first, and then that way you're able to help other people grow. So it's like and I know you know this model, I've heard you use it. So when you get onto an airplane, what do they tell you? It's the oxygen mask. What do they tell you? Put yours on.
Put your oxygen mask first before you help someone else. And that's the thing, is that we have such big hearts. We have big things that we want to do, but we need to help ourselves first before we can help other people. And I see so many spiritual people with gifts drain themselves because they don't take care of themselves first. I've definitely done it. I had to take a year or two off to recover for myself and just take care of my own emotional needs and my own grief and just taking care of my own self before I decided I wanted to become a love coach.
Yeah, I've done it, and I actually drained my adrenal glands and my whole adrenal system like twice, and it took me months to even get anywhere near a normal operating pattern. And it's just like, I knew after the second time, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, what do I need to do so I don't do this anymore? So yes. So ladies, those are the takeaways for today. Betty, if you will please tell everybody where they can get a hold of you, how they can interact with you, so that because I'm pretty sure that there are people who will definitely want to reach out and talk to you about what it is that we've discussed here. I know that we covered a few hot button subjects, as they call it, and I'm remiss to say we couldn't dive a little deeper. I think that there's definitely, but I think that's the beauty in all this, is that we're able to be like, you know what, we're going to come back and we're going to dive deeper into all these subjects. So I think it's beautiful. So yes, please tell everybody where they can get a hold of you, and then we're going to.
So I'm Betty Dang. Betty Dang, Dang. I have my own website, bettydang.com. You can reach me up there. There's a contact form. There's my email address up there. And I'm also very active on Facebook and Instagram. So you can definitely find me on Facebook and Instagram by the same name, Betty Dang. Yep, I always welcome any questions that you have, any feedback. If you like something from the show, I'd love to hear from you.
Awesome. And I will definitely be adding her to the notes, you guys. And so, as everybody knows, my name is Ashley. Obviously. If you are new to the podcast, I can be reached. I have multiple ways to be reached. So I have my own site, www.toughwoman.com, TUF, all lowercase, woman.com. You can reach me on Facebook on my personal page, Ashley Ingram. If you want to get a hold of me on Instagram, it's the unfuckwithable woman, all one word. And also on my business page on Facebook, the unfuckwithable woman. I actually, in reminiscing real fast, I love that I chose that name, even though I would have gone with it, because it sparks many a conversation. So yes, but like I said, I will be going ahead and putting Betty's information in the note, and I am excited and hope that we can definitely collaborate on some future podcasts going forward.
Yes.
I feel like we've encountered a wonderful pool to dive in. We're going to tiptoe into the Kundalini pool. We're not going to
definitely. We should have a podcast.
We will definitely do it.
To see how your journey on Kundalini has gone, like next month, to see how your journey has gone, because it does light up very fast. It's ignite. The thing is to ignite your Kundalini. That's what the key phrase is.
Oh, it's going to be fun because it was actually a twin flame ignition, so there's duality to how it.
Oh, yes.
So it's going to be an interesting talk. We'll just leave that teaser for everybody else. But okay, so you guys, I am so thankful for everybody coming out. I like to put out there, go out, embrace grace. That's my biggest thing in this one. That's my slogan my slogan logo from the beginning is embracing grace. So whatever that means to you, embracing grace, and I think that works so well with becoming a love warrior in the soul, heart and soul of honor, is embracing grace with yourself, showing yourself love first so that you can go out and show love to the world. So Betty, is there anything else you want to say before we get off here?
I'm good. I'm just really thankful and really grateful for everyone for watching our show. And I really love to connect with people who want to connect with me. That'd be nice. Thank you.
All right. And you guys, please feel free to reach out to Betty. She's super awesome, super knowledgeable. And as always, you guys, I will be back next Monday at 5 p.m. I look forward to actually going on 4 Mondays a month, so continuous here. And that is all for today. I'm so excited. Thank you, Betty. And we're going to get off here. All right,
Thank you.
Betty. Thank you, Betty.
Bye.